So you have a Dear Abby letter that we want
Well,
to
what's ironic is this actually pulls into Mother's Day in addition to Dumbo's feather. Now, I was talking before the calls about the idea of setting a child up for failure. And then when the child fails, you say, the reason your life is a wreck and you can't function in life is because you just don't have God with you. So if you just come back and be in the church, your life will be much better. And of course, the child who has not been taught to critically think and questions nothing and simply did things that she was told not to do, wrecks her life and then comes back and, everything does seem better when I just do what I'm told and I don't have to think and I don't try to figure this stuff out and just listen to what it says to do and I just do it. And, for years afterwards, when someone comes to her and says, you don't need this, she'll be saying, yeah, I tried it on my own, but my life just really came together after I came back to God.
Yeah.
Well, here's an example of exactly how that's done. Dear Abby, our 16-year-old daughter Nola is pregnant. My husband and I are very disappointed. We do not believe in abortion, so we're going to have Nola homeschooled until the baby is born, and then the baby will be given up for adoption. What I need is advice on how to deal with our 10-year-old daughter. Our youngest knows the facts of life, but does not fully understand that girls who are not married sometimes get pregnant and have babies. I obviously do not want the same thing to happen to her, so I want her to understand that this is wrong without demonizing her sister, whom she loves and looks up to. There's so much wrong with this that I don't even know where to start with it.
It's almost fractally wrong.
Yeah. First of all, don't be disappointed with your 16-year-old daughter. Be disappointed that you're crappy parents. If you taught your 16-year-old the same level of, or I should say, if you didn't teach, didn't teach her on the same level that you're not teaching your 10-year-old, then I don't even know how you have the right to be surprised that she's pregnant. A 10-year-old who doesn't know that there are single mothers in the world
doesn't know the facts of life.
Either your child knows it and you just don't talk to your child enough to know that your child knows it, or your child doesn't know it, and congratulations, because you have just succeeded in raising a completely ignorant child to the age of 10. At 16, you're talking about 6 years after 10, your kid probably, I'm guessing, had the abstinence-only talk. I doubt that when you're talking about the facts of life, but we didn't talk to her about, how you can get, if she doesn't know that you can get pregnant outside of marriage, how does she understand the facts of life?
Yeah.
Because the facts of life have nothing to do with marriage. The facts of life generally means the mechanics of sexuality. And if the child understands the mechanics of sexuality, unless you told her that by some magic mode you can only get pregnant within marriage, the 10-year-old should understand that you can get pregnant whether you're married or not.
I guess, though, if you believe in magic.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the case. That's a question.
I'm just saying it's not a doctrinal thing to.
No.
There's no doctrine that I know of in Christianity where they teach people that you're unable to get pregnant unless you're married.
Well, see, I was first thinking that as, I was going to pose it as the challenge of the week to the theists, which, I kind of stopped doing because none of you guys answer because, well, usually there's not an answer. But, I was thinking, well, if sex outside marriage is wrong, why didn't God make it that you could only get pregnant while you're married? But I came up with the answer right away. There's no way Mary could have got knocked up and had Jesus if you can't get pregnant outside of marriage.
That's right.
Clearly, that's the way God wants it. Matter of fact, Mary wasn't married when she had, became pregnant with Jesus. Maybe your daughter's conception was immaculate too.
And the other issue that I have is with, we're very disappointed.
Yeah.
You're disappointed. Let me just explain that your pregnant daughter could have come home and said that she has HIV and that she's going to die. And you're disappointed. You should just feel lucky that she's not got HIV and that she's just dealing with a baby. Because this could have been, you could have a dead child on your hands at this point instead of a pregnant child because of your, what can only be described as gross negligence in not teaching your child what she needed to know to protect herself. You don't believe in abortion. Well, does she? Have you even asked her? Does her opinion even matter, or does it not matter at all? Because honestly, if you're thinking that she's going to do everything you tell her without question, then maybe you're not even aware she has opinions at 16. Maybe you should talk to her about her opinions and what she thinks about things. And maybe it's not just about you tell her what to do and she does it. That's not what children are. Children are people. They're human beings. When they hit 16, they have their own ideas. They have their own things that they want to do. They are not going to do everything you tell them to do.
Yeah,
and you need to prepare them for what can happen if they don't do everything that you think they ought to do. We talked about speeding.
Yeah.
The idea that, you get your kid a car, you've taught them to be responsible, but let me just remind you that you were 16 once. Reach back into your head, take a crowbar and open your mind, and remember when you were 16 years old and ask yourself how responsible you were then, or are you just lucky that you came out of it as good as you did? Because you're ignorant at 16. There's a lot of things you don't know. And as parents, our job should be to teach them what they don't know and prepare them for what is possible, whether it's what we agree with or not. And with the car, you get the kid the car and you say to them, drive carefully, obey the rules of the road, be careful for the stop signs, the stoplights, don't hurry through a light if it's yellow, don't speed, don't drink and drive, for goodness sakes, please don't drink and drive. But you can't say don't drink and drive, and if you call us up and you are drunk at a party, we're gonna come down there and kick your ass and blah, 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 blah. The kid has to feel comfortable calling you and saying, Mom and Dad, I'm blitzed at a party and I can't drive. Because if you've got the kid thinking Mom and Dad are going to be disappointed and hate me for the rest of my life if I call them up and tell them that I'm fucked up at a party, guess what? They're not going to call you. They're going to get in the car and try to drive home. So please, please, please make sure that your children understand that they will never be a disappointment to you. That they're not going to be, it's not a disappointment. Okay, you made a mistake. You had sex, you're pregnant, we got an issue here that we need to figure out. Let's figure it out. It's all right, we still love you. Let's find out what we need to do here. What's going on? Who is the boy? What did you do? How long have you been going out? What are you comfortable with? Is baby something that you would want? Are you going to be okay with adoption? Are you going to be, to not even give the child, it's like we don't believe in abortion. Well, does she? And that's one of the things that really bothers me.
Well, in their case, it may not matter. And by the way, on the driving things, tell them to stop texting. If you want to talk on the phone, I'm almost okay with that. If you got a Bluetooth, thing to where you're actually mostly focused, because that's not too different from talking to somebody else. Stop texting. I kid you not. Driving to work the other day. Hand on the cell phone, driving with this hand while texting with this hand and not looking at anything around. You're going to kill somebody. Are you crazy? But back to this. It may not matter. There's some of this parenting where it's, as long as you live under my roof, you'll do what I say. So she may not have any choice in this. It may not matter to these particular parents what her views are on. I'm opposed to abortion, and as long as you live under my roof, you never have. Well, all right, cool. Move out. If I realize that it's a difficult situation. I don't want to beat up parents. They have principles. They're sticking to them. They have a right to those principles. They have a right to try and convince others, including their children.
Sure.
But your children have rights too. You failed as parents. You did. You failed as parents. You failed to properly educate your children to prepare them to deal with reality. You failed to give them, as Tracie was pointing out, the comfort that they could come to you when there was actually a problem or when they didn't disagree with you. You failed to instill in them the forward thing, the ability to form their own opinions and be okay with it. I'm not saying that we should never discipline children, let them run wild in the house, and let them talk back, and let them be their own person and express. No. Encourage them to question everything. And the more respectful you are of them and their opinion, the more respectful they're likely to be of you and your opinion. The more likely you are to have a good dialogue that proves beneficial to not only your child, but perhaps to you too. This old, oh, you can't teach a new dog. Yes, you can. You can teach an old dog whatever the hell you can teach a puppy. They're just a little slower sometimes. Stop being slow. Stop being bad parents. Stop being disappointed.
Right. And ask yourself why you didn't know she was having sex.
Yeah.
What is it that made her unable to come and talk to you about something that should have been a very important decision? Here she is, she's become sexually active, and you don't even know this.
And you have unrealistic expectations, by the way.
Well,
This is the whole reason.
well, that's why you don't know it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like the two are unconnected. It's not a mystery why you didn't know she's having sex.
Right.
It's because she knew that you would be unaccepting of her, that you would be disappointed with her, that you would not understand what it is that she's making a choice here. She made a choice, and you were unaware of this choice, and she couldn't come and talk to you about this choice because she knew your mind was so glued shut that you wouldn't even be able to dialogue with her about it. And that is not the type of parent I think anybody should want to be.
Yeah, and while I'm not completely sure what all of their views are, based on what they've expressed and the situation that they're in and what their reaction is to the situation, these to me seem like abstinence-only parents.
Yeah.
That you're just supposed to remain chaste until marriage. And well, I'll give you credit. That method will guarantee that you don't get pregnant. If you don't have sex, you're not getting pregnant. That includes Mary, by the way. But you're being unrealistic with your expectations if you think that. And I don't understand how this happens so often with parents. I mean, not only with handfuls of parents, but I mean, you know, there are school groups and organizations where abstinence-only education is what they teach in school. Have you completely forgotten what you were like as a teenager?
I think they have.
I mean, you know, don't pretend, don't do this back in the old days crap. Well, we just didn't do stuff like that when I was a kid. Well, maybe you're homely.
No.
But other
they got
people
married.
were having sex.
Right.
You know, I'm sorry that you didn't get in on the action, but kids are going to have sex. Do you know why? Because it's a biological imperative. That's what puberty is. It's nature encouraging the reproductive cycle.
Right.
It's saying, hey, let's get busy and start having kids. And what you're doing is saying, nope, hold off. Yeah, that'll work.
Well,
just say no.
And it's not even just about saying don't do it. It's about saying if you do, you're completely unacceptable.
Right.
That's the thing that I think clinches it for me. It's like you have a child that couldn't come and talk to you, and you're disappointed with her.
Yeah.
That's what blows my mind. You set up a situation. It's your job as a parent to keep the lines of communication open. It's not the child's job to make a relationship with their parents. It's a parent's job to create a relationship in a family environment for the kid. And if that child doesn't feel like she's even able to come and talk to you, like you would be able to even understand what she's going through or what she wants to say or how she's feeling, my God, what have you done?
Amen.
What have you done? And I'm tired of people messing up their kids. And this is the situation where you create a child that cannot function, they can't come to you, you can't talk to them, there is no adult advice that they're getting, and they're making these choices that are going to affect them, and you're keeping them ignorant, you're not available to them as a source of inspiration or a source of information, and then when the child gets in trouble because they were ignorant, you say, I'm so disappointed with my child, and we got to homeschool her so the neighbors don't find out about that. It's not about where did I mess up, and my God, what did we do wrong here, that our kid was so afraid of us that she couldn't come and talk to us.
There is one bit of good news in this story. These particular parents are so colossally irresponsible that they're willing to completely shirk any responsibility and put the kid up for adoption.
Correct.
And the reason I say it's a good thing is that now we've increased the likelihood that this next generation from this gene pool will not be subjected to the same kind of ignorance and apathy that their parents received. I can only hope that this kid goes to a good home where there are parents who are loving, intelligent, responsive, encouraging, who form a proper family that's not just put your foot down, you're doing what I'm saying, and if you don't, then you're just you're the screw up.
Instead of you can come to me with anything.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to come to me, and we'll talk about it. I might not be happy about it, but I definitely want to know what's going on in your life, and if it's something I'm not going to like, I still want to know, and I'm still going to love you, and it's not going to matter. We'll figure it out. That's what you need to offer.
Right.
And what I'm saying here is this is parents. I mean, they don't, like you say, they don't talk about their religious perspective, but it exudes from the letter. So you've got these parents who are, if they're not doing this for religious right reasons, they are the model religious right parents based on the situation, whether they are or not. You've got this situation which is going to occur when you follow the recipe of the religious right and the abstinence only, methodology, and you get this set up for failure. You're going to fail, and then we're going to hammer you about it, and we're going to make horrible consequences for you, and you're going to see how bad you messed up your life because you didn't do what God wanted you to do. And then when you go and you do what God wants you to do, well, then your parents are behind you. You got to be penitent. You got to come and say how ashamed you are of how horribly you messed up, and look what you did, and look how ashamed we all are, and you've embarrassed the entire family, and you sinned against God. And then this kid runs the gauntlet of shame, deals with whatever she has to deal with the rest of her life, a child that she knows is out there that's hers, that she may or may not have any connection to. This is going to haunt her for the rest of her life in an environment where she's in a religious environment where people are going to judge her for that, and okay, well, you're forgiven now and it's all wiped clean, but boy, that was a mistake. That's the whole reason that Jesus needed to die, because stupid things like you just did. And in the end, the only way she's going to be accepted is to say, I'm very sorry for what I did, and I'm going to live my life for God now, and look what happened when I didn't. I just got nothing but hammered. So she grabs hold of that, magic feather, and then from that point on, my life was never so good as when I went back and picked up that magic feather again.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's no surprise.
And on another note to the parents, I have a sneaking suspicion, based on what they've said, and this is something that they're probably going to hang over her head forever. Every time she starts to make anything that they view as a misstep, it'll come back to yes, this is going to turn out just like that time that you got pregnant and we had to cover for you.
God help her if the 10-year-old ends up in the same situation.
Oh, yeah.
Well, then that's going to be her fault too. Well, look at the example you set for your sister, and you're responsible for this if she hadn't seen you do it.
The only thing is that if the 10-year-old ends up in the same situation when she's 16, she'll have a 22-year-old sister who may actually have learned something from this, who can help her get away from a couple of ignorant parents who are unwilling to, love and help their children.
Anyway, but my point with things like this is I don't give credit to a religion for giving somebody self-esteem and helping the girl get through this when the religion itself is responsible for the error or for whatever consequences, occur. Making the problem, if you made the problem and then you offer some ounce of help to try to get it resolved, no, you don't get credit for that. It's your responsibility to resolve it completely. And to say that this is a situation that can never be resolved. It's like trying to stuff the genie back in the bottle. This is done.
Yeah.
So this can't be fixed. So religion here has made a situation where this cannot be fixed. It can only be, the mess can be only cleaned up to a certain level, and that's going to be it. And I'm not going to give religion credit if this girl says the only way I got through it was because of, my religion and all the people that helped me at my church. And it's like, no, I don't give it credit. You messed her up. And so whatever help you gave her, you owed her. And the same with her parents. Whatever help you give her, whatever help you deny her, you shouldn't deny her anything, but whatever help you give her, you owe it to her. So don't pretend that you're doing so much for her. You're doing it to clean up your own mess. And, that's my rant for this week.
And a damn good rant at that. The number's up. As a reminder, we're going to El Arroyo after the show. There's about 14 minutes, or actually there's 12 minutes and 54 seconds left in the show. They put the address up while we were talking, and I didn't want to interrupt Tracie while she was on a roll because it was inspiring. There's the address for El Arroyo. We're on the show for another 12 and a half minutes. Any atheist or atheist-friendly person is welcome to join us down there. You do not have to be a member to attend. We'll be down there for an hour or 2 hours, whatever. Have a dinner and drink. Conversation about parenting. I'm betting, since that's a subject that comes up from time to time. Russell Glasser's actually done some talk about atheist parenting on this program as a third-generation atheist himself. So that's always interesting. Tracie and I are both coming from a religious background where we were religious to a surprising age for me.
Yeah. And if I would have ever gotten pregnant, there is no way in hell I would have ever spoken to my parents about it. Never. I would have never gone to them. I would not have felt comfortable going to. It would have been like last resort.
Would you have had an abortion even if you were opposed to it at the time?
I might
been
have out of
sneaky?
just out of pure fear of my parents. I might have.
Yeah. So the fear of your parents being disappointed with you would trump your.
That's the thing that people don't get. When a kid is 16 years old and you say, if you ever come home in that situation like the neighbor, I'll kill you.
You better
when
pack
you
your
tell
bags.
a child that, you don't understand the level of fear that puts in that kid. As a parent, you might be, it's not true. You're not going to kill your kid. But the kid only hears, oh my God, I don't even want to think about it. I mean, you're the person that's been disciplining this child, and probably with corporal punishment, if you're religious right. And so when you're telling this child, you don't even want to know what would happen to you if you come home in that situation. Believe me, when that kid gets in that situation, it takes a lot of balls for a kid to come and tell you, this is the situation I'm in, because they think you're really going to kill them. You know, it's like...
Yeah. Or even if they understand that you're not going to actually shoot them.
It's bad. They know it's bad.
No kid wants to disappoint their parents that much. You know, nobody wants to face. They already know they're going to have to face consequences, and they don't want to face additional consequences. They'd rather. What they're looking for you is understanding, comfort, and hopefully advice and direction on how to resolve this.
Right.
You know.
And support.
But the thing is yes, I'm willing to blame the parents on this. Although, to be fair, this is probably the way they were raised too. And they don't know any better. It's not like we have really good parenting classes going on. Everybody, for the most part, jumps into being a parent with virtually no knowledge apart from how they were raised. And this idea that, well, it worked well enough for my parents and I turned out okay, so I'll parent roughly the same way, and my kids will turn out okay. That's kind of the way it goes, and that, I think, is why we see disturbing trends in families of things that aren't necessarily genetic. I'm not saying that everybody's a I will. I'm pretty sure everybody's a crappy parent on some level. If you have a kid, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to screw that kid up a little bit, a lot, somehow, some way. It's like if you bought a motorcycle. One of these days, you're going to lay that bike down. If you go into buying a motorcycle knowing that this is going to happen, not only does it make it less likely to happen, but it makes you prepared for what's going to happen eventually. And you don't panic and turn a bad situation into a worse one. Somebody in the studio asked what dear Abby said in response. Wasn't really worth reading. It's basically, don't worry about it. She'll see what's going on with her older sister and she'll understand it.
Well, I think, though, I don't know whether or not to take it as a backhanded advice, because it almost, to me, it almost sounds disapproving, as though Abby's saying, this is what you're going to do, not necessarily that she's saying, I approve of it. And then at the end, I think she really does hit it. So what Abby says, just because somebody asked, your younger daughter will learn a great deal as Nola's pregnancy progresses, which I think she is going to learn a great deal because the parents have never told her this. She will see your disappointment, hear your disapproval of sex outside of marriage, not to mention how irresponsible Nola and the father of the baby were for not using birth control. Now, Abby's not saying that, the way it's written, Abby is not saying that Nola and the boy were irresponsible. She's saying your 10-year-old is going to hear you say this.
I don't think they will. I think that what they'll hear is that they were responsible for having sex, not for not using birth control.
You're right. But basically what Abby does is she runs down all the condemnation that the parents are putting down, and she says, your 10-year-old is going to hear you condemning over and over again your 16-year-old. So don't worry about it. She'll get the message that this was not the thing you wanted done. But then at the end, she says, so worry less and spend more time letting both of your daughters know you love them unconditionally. And totally, that is absolutely what's missing in this relationship. The kid did not know that. If she knew her parents would love her unconditionally, they would have known she was having sex.
All right, so based on Tracie's reading of that, I've completely changed my mind on the nature. You've seen it right here. I've changed my position again. It's not useless dribble about she'll figure it out. You interpreted it in a way where now I have a different understanding of it.
Yeah, I think sometimes Abby basically throws up her hands and says, this is what you're going to do. Yeah. And I think she understood that there was really no changing what these parents are going to do as a reaction.